Welcome to Module 5 in our GBL mini course, and in this session we're going to look at the GBL business case, and this is where you've started to explore game-based learning and somebody asks a question, well, what's all this going to cost? And you need to look at some numbers. It reminds me of the story of the old quote, as long as everything's 98% right, it doesn't matter about the other 3 to 4%. So there's a little bit of precision needed here. And right at the start, the other question is, why do you need a GBL business case? And it could be one of two reasons. The first reason is you've already decided you want to do this, and now you need to get investment for it. Or the second reason is you want to explore in a fairly open way whether it does actually make sense to do this. So they're both subtly different, and you need to decide which of the two you're actually doing. Getting investment for something you've already decided to do, or you're exploring whether the investment decision does actually make sense. So I'm going to overview my own approach to producing a business case, which is relatively logical, I hope. And first of all, I'm going to go through the steps at a high level. Then I'm going to do a little sort of mini worked example with you. So I suggest the first thing you do is to, if you're working particularly with a leadership group, identify the top performers and try and make an assessment of their financial impact to the organization in terms of the revenues and the costs and the profits that their performance influences. Now that can be a little bit challenging, and I'll show you how I suggest you do that. Secondly, you need to then look at coming up with a skills model and assessing these top performers and average performers and low performers against this skill model. And I'll show you how you might do that. Then you're going to try and estimate how far GBL is going to move the needle in terms of taking low and average performers towards target performance, and what this would actually be worth to the organization for the typical participants. Then you need to work out how to aggregate the benefits to the entire learning community. And if it's a small community, you can work with individuals. If it's a larger community, you need to work with types, average performer, medium high performer, medium low performer, those kind of types of performer. You then need to look at the phasing of the benefits over time. And say, for example, it's a 3-year period, and you might get 50% of the performance and benefits happening in the first year, then 70% in the next year, then 90%. You don't just switch this stuff on and get the benefits immediately. Then you need to do the cost-benefit analysis by bringing in the cost of the intervention as well, upfront costs and ongoing costs, and you need to look at payback and return on investment calculations. And finally, you really do then need to make a go or no-go decision if you're using this to explore if it makes sense. And if you do make a go decision, then that shouldn't just be the end of the benefits piece. You really need then to set up a tracking system so that you can see if you've overestimated or underestimated your benefits, if you're actually achieving them. So let's try and make this a little bit more concrete. Here's an example. This is a little calculator, which is a kind of methodology for producing a business case. So if we start in the top left, step 1, identify the leader's potential financial impact. So that's saying in this example, a leader can have a 5%, typical maximum leader can have a 5% increase in the revenue of the area to which they have responsibility. And potentially they can also have a -1% on the costs. We're saying in this case they're not directly influencing profits other than this calculation, but they could actually be influencing profits as well. So then the perfect leader can actually have an impact value. For example, revenue going from 50 to 52.5, and the benefits then on revenue is 2.5. Benefits on cost is minus 100, and of course you add these, you subtract that off because negative cost is an advantage. So we've got a typical perfect leader making a benefit in profit terms of 2.6 million or whatever it is, or 2,600, depends on the scale. So you've worked out what the ideal leader can do in terms of the benefits they bring to their area, and this probably is more reasonably expressed as a percentage of revenue. Then you need to look at the skills that leaders have. And in this area, we've taken the 5 main skills that Deloitte's have identified as creating a top leader, but you can put in any skills you want here. So, and we've got a scale of a 10-point scale. So, for example, we're saying a target level of strategy is 9. So that might be the skill level of a top leader, but the average person you're working with currently has a strategy skill of 5. You might have a 5-point scale. This is a 10-point scale. And this spreadsheet's available, and I'll give you a link to get it, and you can modify it. You then need to say, what's the weighting of this skill in terms of contributing to the overall benefit? And you can see, for example, that decision making, we've weighted more heavily than all the other skills. So the little diagram to the right of this is a spider diagram, which shows current skill levels and target skill levels. Then down below this, then you're starting to look at the financial benefits of leadership development. So we're saying the perfect leader was adding 2,600 to profits, and that's with that skill profile there shown in the column 99788, whereas the average leader is currently on the other skill level. If we could bring the average leader up to the target level, then they would be operating at 80% of the level of the perfect leader, and therefore they would contribute to profits 80% of that. So that's the basic idea of the spreadsheet, and good that it's a spreadsheet because you can go in and play around with it. If you click on that link, I'm very happy to send you a copy of the spreadsheet. So just to sum up what we're doing here, first of all, remember Einstein's quote, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So this is never correct. It's either useful or not useful. In fact, the most useful part of this is the conversations you go through in terms of working out these numbers. In a sense, the numbers are not that important, but the way you discuss them and who you discuss them with should bring significant focus to your program. The other technique you can use in this stuff is confidence intervals. For example, the 90% confidence interval is worth looking at. So 90% confidence interval means I'm 90% certain that the leader's contribution to revenue is between 3 and 5%. And that's a good way when you're dealing with uncertainty to put a boundary on it, and actually very realistic in a program such as this. So the final thing to say is got to remember why you're doing the business case. Is it to get investment for a decision you've already made, or is it an open exploration of whether this is a good investment for the company? And the business case is not a one-off. It needs to be revised and it needs to be monitored against the actuals. So hopefully that's useful. What I'm going to go on to in the next video is to share some insights from all the participants who've played game-based learning with me over the last 10 years, and I hopefully will be able to summarize them for you in quite an interesting way.